I was relaxing today drinking some early morning coffee when rumors started going around the official Chivalry 2 Discord that the new Galencourt patch would be releasing in an hour. Now, after being roasted for endlessly being late with patch number 1, it seems the Torn Banner team is changing to the under-promise, over-deliver philosophy because at around lunchtime, the update downloaded and new Chivalry content has arrived. Now, before I go over the update, let me first say that PC party issues are still not fixed, and true crossplay is nowhere close to arriving, if in fact it ever does. I've made my feelings on these things pretty clear in previous videos, and do not feel like just beating a dead horse and continuing to complain about it. Now, as we do begin to unpack the new content update, please note that the official patch notes will be linked down below. They're very extensive, and I will break the video into chapters. If there's a certain section you're most interested in, feel free to jump ahead. Now, as we log on, you'll notice there's a new title screen. Click your armory and you'll see a new option, the player profile. The player profile is where you can track your account statistics, and I always love when games track kill-death ratios because now half the player base will hide in the back ranks all game trying to pick free kills. So when they end a 30-minute game 10-1, they can brag to their friends about their kill-to-death ratio. Stat tracking, in my opinion, is one of the true killers of objective play. Now, when we get past our main stat tracking screen and look into the individual class and weapon statistics, you'll notice that they are broken, and I must be Achilles reborn because I have KDAs in the hundreds. I would make a snide comment about this, but with early access gaming in the last few years, my standards have been so lowered that it's to be expected. Now, as we jump in game, the Sweatlords of Chivalry can rejoice as there is a new arena mode. This is the closest thing we have to a competitive ladder, and it'll give more serious players a chance to test their skills in arms against other tryhards. Arena is a 3v3 deathmatch where the first team that wins 5 rounds is declared the victor. Now, when I was placed into 3-on-3 matches, the gameplay was intense and high stakes. I really enjoyed having to dial it in and concentrate a bit more on my mechanics. I both killed and was killed by some really good players. I'm sure there will be a much higher skill gap in these games if this is your thing. Now, it seems there's always a silver lining with Chivalry 2, and while I greatly enjoyed the 3-on-3 matches, getting placed in one was a rare occurrence. The majority of my games devolved into the following. The match starts, the team who loses the first round immediately quits, leaving us to either stomp out the remaining 1 or 2 enemies or make silly emotes at them. Now, I will also say many of my games even began with uneven teams of 3 vs 2, which completely ruins the experience. My last arena match of the day, I was placed in a solo duel and just apologized to the other player at the start of the match and informed them I would be backing out, as having to deal with 5+ broken matches to get one fun one is just not worth it to me. I hate to be pessimistic, but using my crystal ball, I foresee a very small player base in arenas following a week or 2 honeymoon period. Now, the crown jewels of the first content update are the Galencourt maps, and map design and immersion is where the Chivalry 2 team really shines. The maps depict a Renaissance period port town, Galencourt. Galencourt is visually stunning and truly immerses you in the lore of Chivalry. For any of their flaws, I think we can all agree that aesthetically the maps of Chivalry are amazing, and this might be the most detailed ones yet. Now, in the team deathmatch version of Galencourt, you start as a young noble, you box it out with your enemies before changing to your selected class. The map has multiple flanking routes and pathways to help spread enemies around, so it doesn't devolve into a mindless team damage fest like Fighting Pit. I would compare it to being a version of Tournament Grounds on steroids. Now, while visually stunning, the Siege version of Galencourt seems to be balanced a bit towards the defending side. And now I hate to make a firm opinion on map balance after only a day, so as players become more accustomed with how to complete the objectives, we'll see if the Mason Gang is able to rise to a more competitive standard. But Galencourt just looks and feels epic, and maps like this are what Chivalry needs to maintain player interest, and it seems to be a great addition to the game. Now, before I touch on balance and bug fixes briefly, I know I've not mentioned the arrow cam, as I have no intention of ever using that feature, and I have a feeling that the majority of the player base will also ignore it. Now, the list of performance, bug, and balance issues is pretty extensive, linked below, and I do just want to point out that if you're like me and regularly incorporate crouching into your combat maneuvers, there's now a stamina cost to crouching, and you'll no longer regenerate stamina when in a crouch. I was actually a little surprised that there's a big Reddit thread supporting this change, since ducking attacks, Crouching to break line of sight and accelerating attacks by using the crouch expands the skill gap. And I did notice this change in arenas that I was running out of stamina way quicker than normal, but ultimately I feel like it'll have little effect on my gameplay in large-scale servers. We also did see the return of the one-handed spear, which I know there's a small one-handed spear main community who's very hyped. I'm shocked it returned so fast. I wasn't expecting it for months. So now as we wrap up, I feel the patch for the most part was a success and added a good amount of content to the game. And at the end of the day, content for the large-scale game modes is what'll keep players engaged in playing the game long-term. I think we're maybe about 4 maps away from saying the game is relatively content-rich. Now, I know there's been an insane amount of complaining about the state of the game lately, and I'm very much in agreement with most of it. However, to me, this is very much like playing PUBG or Escape from Tarkov, where you need to make a decision of if you like the game enough to deal with the spaghetti code, and this answer is, of course, different for everyone. I do encourage those who've lost all rationality on the situation to take a break, as the game will very likely be in a much different state for the Steam release. That's it for me. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the battlefield.